Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky will no longer attend a scheduled virtual classified briefing where he was set to address United States senators due to a last-minute matter, according to Senator Chuck Schumer. Zelensky also did not appear virtually at the House briefing, lawmakers say.
This comes after Zelensky was set to address U.S. senators in a classified briefing via secure video conference to discuss the ongoing war in Ukraine and advocate for additional military aid. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer announced this briefing a day before a Senate vote on a $106 billion emergency foreign aid package, which includes over $61 billion designated for Ukraine. Schumer emphasized the importance of senators attending the briefing to hear directly from Zelensky about the critical nature of the upcoming vote.
Zelensky had previously warned senators in a closed-door meeting in September about the potential consequences for Ukraine without increased U.S. aid. Meanwhile, the aid package faces delays due to disagreements between the parties regarding the inclusion of immigration and asylum policy reforms aimed at reducing migrant flows across the U.S.-Mexico border.
Tucker Carlson recently discussed the Biden administration's war spending on his Twitter show. Let's watch.
Biden's budget director, the head of the OMB, sent a letter yesterday to Speaker Mike Johnson, imploring him to spend more money in Ukraine. And what they said is they want to revitalize our defense industrial base. That's the new acronym, DIB, for the MIC, the Military Industrial Complex. And they sent a list of states that would get money when we spend, money on deadly munitions, because they have to be manufactured in Alabama or Ohio or Texas. And so, they're saying the quiet part out loud, that congressmen tend to vote for this stuff because a lot of this federal spending that goes to Ukraine is actually laundered back to the military industrial complex. And in some ways, not very efficiently, but in some ways, it enriches people in their districts and the stockholders, some of whom are congressmen.
That's also grotesque, but it's also straightforward. People are getting rich, so let's do it. Okay, that's an argument. It's an immoral argument, but it is one. But that's not the argument they're making in public. They're saying we have a moral obligation. You're a bad person. You just heard the National Security Advisor say that you're a bad person if you're against this. But no one ever mentions that we have abetted the killing of an entire generation of Ukrainian men that will not be replaced.
Tucker Carlson wrote on X, how could Washington possibly send tens of billions more to sleazy oligarchs in Ukraine now that the whole enterprise has been revealed as a fruitless, corrupt, and incredibly destructive disaster? Because that's what they always do. Very eloquently explained there by Thomas Massey, who's been on fire lately.
Absolutely.
Pointing out that, It's being presented to Congress as as almost like an improve the economy plan. And it is true when you move money from when you raise taxes to pay for something and then the product is going to be manufactured, you do make things better for, he's saying that inefficiently for a couple people, for the people who manufacture those weapons. But that's basically just a wealth transfer from the people to specific firms. And I guess you could say that's a positive side effect if the spending in question is really necessary or really important. But of course, what we're calling to attention here is that it doesn't feel very necessary, doesn't feel likely to work. Ukraine is in the position it's in. Everyone is starting to gradually acknowledge that this is not a winnable war. It's at a stalemate, but Russia occupies the territory in question. It occupies the territory that it meant to wrench out of Ukrainian control. I don't think this is ideal. I don't think in an ideal world Vladimir Putin's government is great or should exist, but I can't snap my fingers and make the world magically suddenly conform to our unrealistic expectations. We have to deal with it as it is. And as it is, it does not seem like Ukraine can possibly win this war. It seems, in fact, that our U.S. intelligence knew with relative certainty that they would not be winning this war from the get-go, from the beginning.
And we've been getting more reporting about that recently. We covered this about a week or so ago, that a top Ukrainian official and now also Germany's former leader have admitted that Russia wanted to sign this peace deal with Ukraine like a month after the invasion first happened in March of 2022, but it was these NATO countries, the United States and the UK specifically, that sabotaged that deal. I mean, and also a couple of weeks ago, I think we covered this as well, there was this argument that was made, I think, in response to how the public was not supportive of additional foreign aid dollars going out the door, that, hey, don't worry about this, Americans. This is actually not money going out the door. It's going to inure to your benefit. It's coming back to America. They were trying to sell the idea of the military-industrial complex as a positive job enrichment plan that Americans should be happy about. But you have to start asking the question, if we're going to do that kind of socialism, if we're going to kind of do a spending plan just to have Americans work and have jobs, do we really want to design it so that they are manufacturing weapons of mass killing to be sent to be used, and in some cases, as being argued in Israel, in a way that violates international law? Or do we want to put people to work doing things that actually benefit our American community and don't earn us more enemies all across the world? Yeah,
this is kind of going to like a fundamental economic, like the broken windows idea under what Keynesianism, where the economists say, oh, a broken window is a good thing because then you pay the window repairman to fix it, and then he has a little bit more money in his pocket, and he spends it on groceries, and then the grocer has a little bit more money in his pocket. Okay, but if the window's just not broken to begin with, the person whose window it is has a little bit more money to do those same things, to improve to fix his door, or to buy his kid a bike, and then the person who sells the bike has a little bit more money, and they can do, like, it happens anyway. That's the economy. I mean, if the economy is totally dead, you need to kickstart it. That's a different matter. But just spending, I mean, if that were true, then we should like blow up all our bridges, and then we could pay the bridge repairman to fix them. Obviously, that doesn't make any sense. People have the money. You're just moving it in different ways, and you're not creating more of it. I think your analogy makes a really important point about how many kind of social consequences, community consequences, externalities aren't always captured by these kind of formalized economic arguments. There are people who live in these houses who have safety concerns, who don't want to be cold in the winter, whose kids don't want to be cut by the glass on the floor. I mean, this is obviously just a strained analogy. But when you have people doing the decision making who are on the very far abstracted side of that equation, trying to tally numbers about what window sales are going to happen this year, then you lose sight of the community level effects. And I also want to say that Massey's point about corporate corruption and corruption in Congress shouldn't be passed over. The number of Congress members who personally benefit from defense stocks, the fact that the media breathlessly reported on the rise in stock value among people who own defense contractor stock as soon as both the Ukraine-Russia war broke out and the escalation in Israel-Palestine broke out. It's a craven admission of how backward our society is. I mean, when Joe Biden was picking his cabinet and picked a former Raytheon board member as his Secretary of Defense, many of us on the left rung alarm bells. What do we think Lloyd Austin is going to do? What do we think his incentives are going to be? Is he exactly one of those pencil pushers that we were talking about in your analogy, who's looking at these high-level numbers on a page instead of thinking about how this is going to impact people's lives? And I would remind folks that in response to that critique from the left, a lot of liberals said, you're only criticizing him because he's black. So this is the world that we live in. One of my favorite economic pieces of writing is Frederick Bastiat's The Candle Makers Petition, where he creates this fictional scenario where candle makers lobby the French government, he was writing in the 19th century, to blot out the sun, because that would be the best job creation program for the candle makers. Always great to see Thomas Massey on in conservative media talking to Tucker Carlson. Very interesting conversation there. More Rising right after this.